Hey guys, Hunter here, back with another video in our Raid for Beginners series. Today, we'll talk about something practical and super important to progressing through the game: farming. This isn't the kind of farming that involves fields and vegetables. That's a whole different game. We're mainly going to be farming XP. In Raid, farming refers to performing a certain action, like clearing a certain stage, over and over to gain experience points, artifacts, or other resources. For now, we're going to talk specifically about farming experience points for your champions. First, why do you even need to farm XP? Champions will just gain XP and level up passively as you use them, right? That's true, but leveling up is only half the battle. You also need to increase their rank. If you watched our Raid 101 episodes about champions and champion ranks, you'll remember that a champion's stats dramatically increase as they reach higher ranks. And to upgrade a champion's rank, you're going to need to sacrifice a number of champions of the same rank. Also, remember that the number of champions you need to sacrifice is always equal to the rank of the champion you want to upgrade. For example, you'll need 5 rank 5 champions to rank up a single champion to 6 stars. So that's pretty simple, right? Get 5 rank 5 champions, then sacrifice them to upgrade another champion. But where do you get those champions? The only natural rank 5 champions you get are legendaries, and you don't want to sacrifice your legendaries, do you? But you'd be more than happy to sacrifice those common or uncommon champions, or even your weaker, rarer champs. And there's your catch-22. Those champions suck. You never use them, so how will they ever reach rank 4 or 5 so you can use them as sacrifices? That's the problem, and that's where farming comes in. The most common way to get around this issue is to level them up in battle by having a stronger champion carry them and earn XP for them. That stronger champion is your farmer. All you do is send your farmer into battle with a team of weak champions that you want to eventually sacrifice. Those weaker champions are often called food or fodder. Again, they suck and they're designed to die in battle while your farmer carries on and beats the stage alone. You don't even give them artifacts. They're designed to die. But this is why it works. Even though they die, if your farmer manages to beat the stage, everyone in the team will gain XP. So you have your farmer, and you have your fodder. You keep running the same stage over and over again while they level up, and when you hit a certain level cap for their rank, you increase their rank and do it again. Once they're at the rank you need, you stop farming XP for them, and you feed them to whichever champion you want to level up. It's pretty simple. Now that you understand the basic idea, let's talk specifics. First, how do you select a farmer? As we mentioned, you need a champion that can beat a stage on their own. Remember, nobody's expecting your uncommon rank 2 level 1 champion to make it to the end of the battle. Because your farmer's going to be taking on whole teams of champions on their own, there are a few things you look for when picking a farmer. First, since they'll be fighting multiple enemies at once, strong AoE attacks are key. If your champions is strong enough, they'll wipe out a whole wave at once. But even if they're not strong enough for that, having AoE attacks will speed things up by not needing to wait for the enemy team to take multiple turns. If your champion is strong enough and can kill every wave of enemies on the first turn every time, then that's all they need. But that's not always realistic, so most of the time your farmer will need some sort of survivability, from self-sustaining skills like lifesteal or even a heal. This one's simple. If your farmer can't kill whole waves on their turn, they need to be able to take some hits and survive till the end. Some champions might have self-sustain through their skills, but you can also get it through specific artifact builds. A lifesteal set is an awesome pairing for a farmer, especially when paired with a skill that lets them counterattack. You get hit, you counterattacked, and you heal up a bit as well. Shield artifacts or divine artifact sets from arena rewards are awesome as well, since they reset each round and give your farmer a nice damage cushion to take a few hits if they need to. There are also some cool masteries that help farming too. For example, Bloodthirst and Blood Shield. The former heals your champion by 10% HP whenever they kill an enemy, while the latter gives them a shield worth 15% of their max HP. Both only happen once per champion turn, but they do stack, and that's pretty sweet. You can transform an otherwise ill-suited farmer into an awesome farmer by building them in certain ways, so don't be afraid to think outside of the box if they don't tick all the boxes by default. So now that you know what to look for, we'll talk about a few champion options for early game farming. Actually, the starter champions can work quite well when equipped with lifesteal, and especially if you unlock some masteries for them. Elhain and Athiel are arguably the best here. Elhain has 2 powerful AoE attacks and is a bit faster. Athiel has better survivability, and thanks to her higher blessing skill that allows her to buff her attack and, if she's low on health, her defense as well. Executioner from the Knights Revenant is also a solid option. His Shieldtron ability buffs his defense and places a counterattack buff on himself, which is really useful for dealing with multiple champions in the campaign. His Tumult skill attacks all enemies and decreases their turn meters, giving the Executioner a better chance to take the turn first and kill some more enemies. And, as icing on the cake, he also has a chance to stun enemies with his first skill, which is really useful when coupled with counterattack. This guy might be worth farming if you don't have him already. Finally, there's a really good option in Fusion at the Portal. Relic Keeper might take a bit more effort to build, but he has some extremely useful skills. First, he is a powerful attacker, and his aura buffs the ATK stat of all Force allies, himself included, by a crazy 40%. As if that wasn't enough, he can buff his attack by a further 50%, and he does that for an entire 4 turns. As you can imagine, Relic Keeper hits hard, real hard. But what about survivability? His passive skill, Ageless Endurance, gives him a 15% continuous heal once every 5 turns when hit by an enemy. Upgrade it and you'll get 3 turns, which is super useful. With a lifesteal set and some well-chosen masteries, this champion can wreak some serious damage. Of course, those aren't all the champions that are good for farming. There are awesome epics and legendaries that can do a good job at it, but for the purposes of this video, we've chosen champions that are easy enough to get for all players. Take a look at your collection, see if you have champions with the traits we've outlined, and you'll more than likely have a few good options to go with. Okay, so that's part 1, choosing a farmer. But what about where to farm? Most XP farming is done on campaign stages because they're quick to beat and you can rerun them over and over in a short period of time. And as a rule of thumb, each run gives you higher XP than dungeons. Higher difficulties also give higher XP than the same stage does on the previous difficulty, so it's usually best to go and farm the most difficult stage you can beat regularly. However, campaign bosses generally give less XP than Stage 6 that comes right before it. For example, Stage 6 of the Brimstone Path will give the best possible XP output on each of the difficulties, with its version on Brutal giving you the most XP per energy spent if you have a champion that can take it on. And that's another thing, you want the most XP you can for your energy, but what if you don't have a champion that can beat the highest stage that you've reached? Or what if your farmer can beat it, but it takes 5 minutes per run? This is where you need to take into account your situation and decide what's best for you. If there's only an hour left on your double XP and you have enough gems to refill your energy as much as you want, then you want to take into account the time it takes to run each stage versus the energy spent. In this case, you might want to focus purely on speed and get as many runs in as possible before your double XP runs out. Whereas if you only have limited energy and not enough gems to refill, then you'll need to go for the highest XP payout per run. There's no black and white answer for where and how to farm. It all comes to your champions and your current situation. But now that you know how to make those decisions, you're all set. Thanks guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be back with more soon. Good luck!